We'll call to order this meeting of the Skagit PUD. 4:30. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 4.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Hearing none, we will move on to the audience comments.
Fourth quarter.
Oh, fourth quarter financial, sorry, jump to that. Which is way more interesting.
Sometimes.
In a good way.
Comments are more
I'm
exciting.
just saying it was exciting is not what we're looking for.
Thank you. All right. This evening we'll cover the fourth quarter financial summary. At the end of the year, we ended with just over $25 million in district funds. We have three major funds. The general fund had about 65% of that, 16.3 million. System development fees, we had just over 7 million. And then we have debt service to pay, upcoming debt service payments of about $1.7 million. I put this up just to show you, we invest with the state local investment pool. This is a 3-year, the last 3 years. After the increase in the federal rates during 2022, you can see the last 2 years, rates have gone between 4% and 5%. And our LGIP return on our investment has averaged just a little bit above that. So all the way up over 5%. So during this 2-year time period, we earned over $3 million in interest, which we used to pay our operating and capital costs. So that's been very good for us the last couple of years. During that time period, our last year, we added 133 new services. You can see the trend here. It's been pretty constant and flat for the last 3 years, just right around 130 new services per year. The prior 3 years before that, we were about almost 90 more per year. We have about 220. And going back to when I started here, we were up about 280. So gradual decrease just means that we have less new services, less consumption going forward. And it also impacts our system development fees, which we collect for those expansion type projects. Change in meters, this is just detailed breakout. I compared from January, June, and December. This is a report we pull out of North Star. So you can see most of those new accounts were residential and then multifamily and commercial. There is some change during the year for accounts that are added or might change categories. So it's a year-over-year comparison, but we added those 133 and most of them are in residential and multifamily type accounts. Thanks, Nick. Consumption comparison for the last 3 years. We had a couple of early months in the year that our consumption was higher than last year, but the darker column here is 2024. And you can see we pretty much trended the rest of the year behind 2023 and 2022 for consumption. I'll point out that here in October, we divested Fidalgo. So there was about 750 accounts that we transferred over to the city of Anacortes. And so that does impact going forward and the year-over-year consumption a little bit. That was about $600,000 in revenue. And so part of the consumption decrease for the year is attributed to that, but also weather patterns. We're about 9.5% lower than last year on consumption. So when we had dry weather, we got more frequent rain. It didn't need as much irrigation this year compared to prior years. This slide compares the revenue for the last 2 years to the budget. And again, we track pretty well every month to budget or just below budget. The final last 3 months of the year, we exceeded the budget and the prior years, but before that, we were kind of trending below the revenue per month from year over year. In dollar terms, we had $32 million of water sale revenue. We're basically flat from year over year, and we're about 98% of budget. You can see on residential, our largest category, we were flat. And then on irrigation, I think this has more to do with weather, needed less water. We're also making changes with the dike districts, and with Fidalgo, I think all of those are contributing to this too a little bit. So that 2% that we're below budget is about the amount that we're short on the Fidalgo revenue. But we did that not on the revenue side, but to save on the expense side for all those capital projects. So let's point that out. Operating expenses, $18.4 million. Overall, we're up 6% over last year, well below budget. These numbers can continue to go up or change slightly. We will process invoices for 2024 all the way through probably March, depending on when the work is performed, not when we get the invoice. So this and capital expenses might continue to go up slightly for the final numbers. I'll point out the big increase here for professional services, 65% increase. It's on a relatively small number, but we did do more professional services last year. During the budget, we talked about it. A lot of this was the lead line survey work that was done by outside consulting. And then also, we were just talking about it before. Well, I'll get to that in the next slide. The election expenses show up under professional services too. And then the other one here is 156%. This is the only category that we're over budget. It has to do with tech, SCADA, and support. And there's a number of projects that began in 2023 that didn't get done until 2024 based on the supply from CDW for SCADA parts and also computer parts. And then during 2024, there's a lot of tech projects associated with the new building and security that have been underway. So by department, this gives a little bit different information of the same numbers. This is where under the commissioners, the budget for the election that I was just talking about, pretty big increase here. 36,000 of that increase though was for that election expense. Good thing it was not. It was just the final election. We didn't have a primary. And then let's see, safety program was a little bit over budget. Jay does the training for the district. We had some extraordinary expenses for training. There was the boom truck and crane training, and then also flag training that a lot of the district had to take last year. He also purchased some retrieval equipment for the confined spaces. So that was part of that. Let's see, the other things under the meter crew, they were up about 15%. We did have an extra position for part of the year in anticipation of a retirement that took place actually already this year. And so that contributed to them being a little bit higher than budget. Operation support is actually an increase on the expense because we had less allocation for the vehicles that comes off of those this department's expenditures. And I think it has to do with our change from COVID. We had more vehicles going to each job because everybody had their own vehicle. And in 2024, we actually could share some vehicles again. So that means that the allocations to projects for the capital costs and to others was less than the prior year. That's one I'm going to take a look at for this coming year to make sure that our allocations and our chargebacks are reflective. I talked about, a little bit more about IT. So again, we had a lot of IT projects and software added during this year for cybersecurity. So that's part of that department's budget. I think I covered all the budget over budgets or higher expenditures on that. Capital contributions, we also receive money for doing work for others, work orders for others, and service orders for others. We budget about $2 million in all four categories. This is system development charges, and this is developer projects that donate infrastructure to the PUD at the end of the projects. We were ahead in all four categories. The only one that we were slightly lower in is service work for others, service orders and hooking up services, which I showed you earlier. So we add all that together for total revenues. You see that we're about 1% higher than last year at $36.4 million. Operating expenses are just under 18.4, and then capital expenditures. So far, we've done $25.5 million of capital project expenditures. I do anticipate this to go up a little bit more in the next month. Debt service, we now have all of our loans, all of the draws and our full amortization schedule. So that's up about 23%, but that's the debt service for this year and next. That creates a deficit spending of $12.1 million. And we paid for that mainly from reserves, which were at the end of last year, 43 million, and we're down to just over $25 million in reserves. That's how we were funding that capital projects that was anticipated. More on that rate study. So back in 2018, we did a rate study and they forecasted out. This is 6 years of the rate study and this anticipated capital projects. This is $120 million. And then this is the blue graph is what we actually did. And we're at about $112 million out of that for that same time period. Mainly only because of COVID and delays in 2022. But other than that, we're basically right on track. The last slide I'll show you on that is the next 3 years anticipate another about $55 million of capital projects. You can see it's variant from the original rate study, but we've got about $15 million and then $20 million in each of the next 2 years. And we've talked about that. That's a big reservoir project for a majority of that in 26 and 27. More to come on that as we get closer. This is a summary of that $25 million by category. $13 million is the biggest, and that has to do with the PUD campus replacement project. We spent about $13 million last year on that. It's almost 100% done. The other two big projects here were Eagle Drive and Avalon, and then the micro hydro. And then the water treatment plant, you can see these are the three big projects at the water treatment plant that are continuing on, but started in 2024 and the amount of money that we've spent so far. These are a lot of fish passage projects. We were talking about that before the meeting. Alger, it's about 130, and then the relocation, SR 10. And then IT, again, these were the three main projects. We had some security upgrades started in 23 and completed in 24. A lot of storage hardware upgrades. And then we had a major Kayenta upgrade that Vivian did a large portion of that work, and then other staff contributed to that. But that was a big project for the PUD district. And then these are the three biggest developer projects that were completed during the year. And that is it for tonight. Any questions on the fourth quarter?
Good for me.
Comments? Public comments? Well, anything.
No.
Thanks.
Delightfully exciting. Right. Good news. All good news.
All right, now,
Any audience comments? Here, if you're watching via Zoom, just raise your hand function. Oh. So I'm not seeing anybody on there.
great. All right,
Move on to general manager report, George.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Few things to update on. I guess I'll start. Okay, so the session in Olympia has started, and working with our lobbyist, Cameron Bailey, we've submitted three capital funding requests, one for each of the districts in Skagit County. So for the 39th district, we submitted a capital funding request for the new emergency generator at the treatment plant. For the 10th district, we submitted for the new disinfection system at the treatment plant. And in the 40th district, because that encompasses this building, we submitted for the fiber that goes from this building up to the water treatment plant. So each request is for $500,000. Not a huge request, even with the budget issues that are going on. We'll see how receptive legislators are. And I'll get my first indication of that tomorrow. So I've got manager meetings on Thursday. And so Cameron scheduled some, since I'm going to be down there, I'm going to go early tomorrow and he scheduled some meetings to meet with a few of the legislators just to explain our projects. So that'll be our first conversation with them after submitting the requests. So I'll get an idea of what people think or what kind of questions they have. And then the first opportunity for us to see more of them are going to be in February at the monthly meetings. There's going to be the PUD Day on the Hill. And so I got a question today from somebody down there. I can't remember if all of you are planning to come on that day or.
I'm out of town that week.
You're out of town, that's right.
I can't go to the 12th.
You can't go, that's the 13th, yeah.
Stay on the hill. I can go 13th. I can't go.
Okay, so you may come and you might come as well, okay.
There's the reception in,
Reception in March.
Yeah,
I'll plan on,
I can go to the
Making that work.
reception.
okay. What do you think? Also, okay, so March is looking better, all right.
Yeah.
Cameron's trying to set up meetings when we are down there. It's not always possible, so I'll let him know. All right, so we're gonna talk to them about our requests. You probably all saw an email that came out today about federal funding and the pause that's been put on federal loans and grants. We got a follow-up email within like an hour of some more information, and we're still looking for more details. We don't have a lot, we've got a couple of projects that might fit into some of this, but we're not, Mark got initial indication that we might be okay, but I think we're just gonna wait and see as more information comes out, clarity on what's paused and what's not. So the things that we think about are the Alger project, there's federal funding there, and then our microhydro project. Those are the two that we're thinking about. And yeah, we don't have enough information just yet. So we'll pay attention to Liz Anderson's emails as they come out. Good news. I was in a meeting with Wapuda and the Department of Commerce last week. And so Wapuda made a request for utility relocation funding on behalf of 8 different PUDs. And so Department of Commerce is going to fund that request at $1 million. So between the 8 of us, we're splitting it evenly at about 121,000 after expenses are done. So we have to have expended the money from July 1st of last year to June 30th of this year. So it's a tight window. And we're going to try and submit a request for one of our projects to get reimbursed for that. So that was helpful.
Just a clarification question on that Thomas Creek that we approved last meeting.
The design, yeah.
Is that project through the county, isn't that a culvert related? I mean, it's a bridge replacement, but it's box culvert related, yes?
Mark knows more. I don't know if it's related to the lawsuit for fish passage.
Which one?
Thomas
The
Creek.
Thomas
Yeah,
Creek
no,
with the
it's
county.
just Flat out county bridge replacement.
Okay, so I thought it was a box culvert project that was also occurring for that, but it's not under
It's
the,
not under the fish, it's not fish passage driven.
Yeah, we're trying to find expenses for ours that might fit under this
Mhm.
125,000. That was one we talked about, but yeah, I don't think that would fly with them. So. But still, if Commerce is willing to provide $1 million to the APUDs, we're trying to see if we can get some piece of that. Some biggest stuff, a lot of things happening around that. Brian mentioned about the building, it's nearing completion. We hope to be in there in about 3 to 4 weeks. And so Shannon and I talked, and we think we're going to try and schedule our first meeting in March for the new building, assuming everything goes well. So we'll play that by ear as we get closer, but we are making good progress. That's all that I have.
Awesome.
In case there's any questions.
Are you providing one-page handouts similar, or is Kevin creating, would you
We've
mind
got-
forwarding those to just electronically, just to review?
I'll send them to all.
Does it also provide the ask versus what the total cost of the project?
Our one pagers show the total cost of the project.
Okay,
It doesn't have the ask on it because we decided that afterwards and that went in the request. The request is filled out online, so we just
got it.
put that in.
It's just
but-
a attachment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, George.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're up for HR department update. Catherine.
Thanks, Nick. All right. So, as always, I thought I would start off with a staffing update. And I wanted to do a recap just for the past year. I'm always surprised by how much we get done in a year. It just flies by, and then you look back and you're like, just so many different things. So as far as new staff, in the whole last year, we had 2 customer service, 5 maintenance, 1 yard maintenance, a water treatment plant, an engineering, records, and then several temps. So quite a few new employees. And then as part of that recap, I also looked at promotions and transfers, and there was even more. We had a lot of internal movement, which of course leads to more external hiring and moving around. But it's always exciting when we can give people new opportunities. So Chris Smith made the transition from inspector to project manager. Eddie Johnson went from maintenance to our water quality tech. Catherine Kane went from CSR to engineering tech, customer service. Gary Riddle went from meter tech to meter foreman. Cody Engberg, maintenance worker 1 to 2. Gary Broughton went from our AP accountant to our customer service supervisor. Courtney Schilling went from cross connection control to engineering tech 3, cross connection. Alden Ostrom, maintenance worker 1 to 2. Kathy DeSellis had deputy auditor duties added to her position. Wendy LaRock went from our environmental compliance coordinator to project manager environmental compliance. And then Brad Washington recently transferred from our maintenance department to a storekeeper. So several of those were due to retirements. So lots of changes last year. And then we had several retirements. And I just realized I left one off of here, but we lost several long-term employees in 2024 and one early this year. So Al Staniford was with us for 31 years and he retired in June. Ed Height was with us for almost 17 years. He retired in November. Scott Kilpatrick was also 31 years. He retired in December. And then Gary Riddle was with us for 21 years and he retired earlier this month. And then also, I forgot Sharon, customer service supervisor. So sorry about that. So lots of movement and changes last year, as Krista can attest to. And then current openings, we have an engineering tech inspector position. We're currently posting that internally only to see what kind of internal interest we get. We'd love to give someone internally an opportunity if possible. That would be a really great career trajectory for someone. So hopefully we'll get some good applicants there. And if not, we'll open it up externally. And then customer service representative, we just started that advertisement today. And then AP tech, we currently have a temp employee who's currently filling that role very well, but we are going to need to hire permanently. So
We have a temp in customer service right now.
I'm sorry,
We have temps in customer service right now.
we have one temp in customer service. Yeah. Yep. And then any questions about staffing? Okay. Union bargaining. I'm happy to report that for the field group, we just completed bargaining successfully. So obviously more to come in a closed session. So I'll give you guys all the fun details. But we did complete that on the 17th. The group is planning to vote on Thursday. And then following that, if we're successful, we'll bring it back for ratification on the first meeting in February. Oh, sorry. And then the customer service group, we had a wage opener, and that was the only thing that was open on that contract, but we also wrapped that up, bargained that successfully. And then we will have the contract itself open for bargaining again later this year. So we get to start all over. So lots of bargaining. And then just a big thank you to our bargaining team. Krista was just invaluable and did a lot of the heavy lifting and preparation. So kudos to Krista, as always. And then Ryan Anderson, who is our distribution superintendent. He was also a part of the previous bargaining, and he was super helpful as well. And then I recruited Doug Streeter, our contract auditor, because Doug has a lot of experience, of course, in public and has held different positions, as also a former state auditor. And so he's also done a lot of bargaining. And so that was really helpful as well. So, and I would have asked Brian, but Brian probably would have blown a gasket because he had too many other things going on. So it was good to have someone that was really good at money. And other large recent projects, just a couple of things. We've been finishing an update of all of our job descriptions, which was a big task. And so now we are pretty much done with that. So we have updated copies of job descriptions, and they're all in the same format, and they're all very pretty. So it was a lot of work. We also digitized a lot of our HR and payroll records, which was a big lift as well. HR has a lot of records. We're still working through some of those tasks, but personnel records are now completely digital. Former, current employees, everything that we have to keep from a public records perspective. We do need to consolidate several things. We still have a lot of duplicates in different areas, not just from, when I've been in my position, but we have a lot of old records and information as well. So we've been, enlisting Shannon's help a lot with that to figure out what we have to get rid of and, what we have to keep. So we've also been planning and preparing for the move. So we planned ahead about 1.5 years in advance. We started looking at all of our records and figuring out the best way to digitize all those and make sure we didn't have to move a ton of paperwork over to the new building. So made a lot of progress there. And then upcoming, this year, we will have the non-rep market compensation study. We did that last time in 2022. So we'll be taking that on again this year, and that's always a big project. And then also just wrapping up all of our HR and payroll records projects, because again, that was just a lot. We had a lot of records. So that's going to take some time. And then, of course, the aforementioned bargaining for customer service. So that's what we've been working on. Happy to answer any questions.
From one bargaining session to another.
Yes,
I know.
just the ball rolling down the hill. All right, thank you.
All right, so now we can chat about delinquent LUD assessment reports.
Maybe the chart instead of the attachment instead of the memo is more exciting. All right, the next two items are annual updates for the board. The first one has to do with the local utility district improvement projects. And it's, that's not very helpful, is it?
Can you zoom it in?
Yeah. It's an annual update. In case we wanted to pursue any of these delinquent LUDs on a legal front, there is an RCW requirement that we update the board and make that determination before March, I believe, of each year. So it's on the calendar, but mainly it's to give you an update on what has transpired during the last year. You can see on that we have 22 now delinquent accounts with 2 or more missed payments. So the way LUDs work is their annual assessments to the property owners. And so we're tracking those that have missed more than 2. And that increased from 19 last year to 22 this year, and a slight increase in dollars, $61,000 to $66,000. Mainly, that's the same people that haven't paid for at least 2 years, but possibly longer. We have 1 or 2 people in the top first 4 LUDs. We have a total of 9 LUDs, and we have 4 that are now complete as of 2024. But we have, let's see, 13 people or 13 parcel owners that are continued to be delinquent in those 4. So the unfortunate thing is we'll have to track these forever or until the properties sell and our liens are made up. But we will continue to do that. We work with them. We can offer payment plans. We do that. We had 6 paid in full last year, which is always a good thing. We had 1 paid off this year already. But you can see out of the remaining parcels, there's 86 parcels now that still have LUD assessments or delinquent assessments, and that number continues to go down. But the longest one goes out till 2036. So these are long-term projects and paybacks for the district, and it's just one thing that we continue to track. Are there any questions about any of that? We just continue to work with them. Our best thing is when they sell, transfer a property, the title companies and us work towards the collections at that point. And we do get notified by the county on delinquent taxes. It goes all the way up to the foreclosure for the county, but usually they are paid off before foreclosure. So we haven't had any that have been actually foreclosed on, but we continue to monitor every single year that get to that point. So. All right. The action would only be to basically take action that we continue to update the board and monitor it and work with our legal counsel and do what we can. I will say that we can hit them up again this year. It's been a number of years since we've sent out letters, but we do contact them all and then they get delinquent notices. But this would be an extra effort that we could do later in the year. So try that again.
Could you scroll up to the action, Nick?
All right, then, pending a
So-
further conversation.
I would make a motion that we authorize the finance manager to continue to pursue collection actions on the delinquent LUD assessments.
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Carries.
Thank you. The second one has to do with just the write-off of bad debt for the year. This is accounts that we have used customer service to continue to try to collect on, and after 90 days, we send it to Skagit bonding to collect on. And at the end of each year, we come and report that back to the board, and we do a adjustment to our books for the entire amount for the entire year, which happens to be $42,760 this year. The attachment, Nick, if you would please. You can see both of these on LUDs and bad debt have a lot to do with the economy. And so during COVID, our bad debt expenditures went up. Can you zoom in a little bit? So in 2022, there was 92,000 written off. Last year, it went down to 38,000. And this year, it's up slightly from last year to 42,760. It's 163 accounts, so the average write-off is $262. That continues to trend up a little bit too as our monthly fees and consumption charges go up. We do take a deposit of $225 for a residential, so by the time they go to collections, it's usually more than 1 month's or 1 bill, 2 months worth of consumption. And then I added the chart at the bottom. You can see where those are congregated by location, Cedar Woolley, Mount Vernon, and Burlington. The larger one in the county has to do with a couple of businesses that we are having to send to collection. I will point out that we continue to receive money every month from Skagit bonding on the years that we have sent to them. Last year, we collected $14,729. Those are from prior year's write-offs, not correlated to the 42,000 from this year. But that is the information for your tonight. And I would ask, the requested action is to authorize the general manager to write off the accounts receivable of $42,760.
I motion to authorize the general manager to write off the amount of $42,760 from my accounts receivable.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that wraps up that business. There's some information in here, as always. Excellent. Commissioner comments.
I think we have a,
Great.
there's no action on that.
No.
The interlocal. It's
The
just for
interlocal.
awareness.
Mhm.
Okay. Comments,
Not for me.
concerns?
No.
Issues? All right, then we will adjourn for a closed session to discuss collective bargaining per RCW 423140 and also an executive session to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for RCW 423110(1)(c).
Reconvene at 5:45.
Reconvene at 5:45.